Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you to yet another episode of Little Modular. Today we will take a look at this very interesting and unique module called Black Code Source. Actually, it's two modules because we also have an expander for it, which is called CS Expander. So we will be talking about these two modules, which are kind of modern and also retro at the same time, because they do draw a lot of inspiration from the early PC computers like Commodore, Atari, or ZX Spectrum. You can actually even have a certain parameter setup here, so it mimics the sound of software loading into the ZX Spectrum. If you are under 40, probably you have no clue what I'm talking about. But if you are as old as I am, you will have those sentimental strings pulled once you hear this great sound, which used to be annoying, but it's kind of cool when I'm listening to it right now. So it's a really weird one. What it essentially is a dual digital noise source. It could provide you an audio digital noise source, just like you heard a few seconds ago. So it's a perfect source for some drones, noise swashes, rises and drops, but also a great source of punchy lo-fi percussion. But it could also be a great source of random CV sequences. And of course, it's also dual because we have a true stereo. To put it simply, you can think of this module as a kind of sample and hold noise generator that is able to repeat very, very long sequences of random levels. And with just the three of those knobs, X, Y, and S, you can get over 4,000 different sequences per each mode that is changed with this switch right here. So a lot of possibilities and a great source of inspiration if you run out of it. You can also trigger those sequences from different points. So it's a very flexible module, not only in the audio range, but also as a great sequences source. There is more to it, especially when you combine it with the expander. Then you get 9 different flavors of noise and randomness instead of 3. Plus you also get a really nifty auto bend function, which I will explain in a second. So let's just dive straight into it. First of all, we get the rate knob right here. With this knob, you decide whether you want to work in the audio range or in the CV range. If the rate is turned clockwise, so it sort of oscillates, works fast, you get an audio range noise, just as I have presented to you at the beginning of this video. If you turn it counterclockwise, somewhere around 9 o'clock and lower, you get those clicks and pops. You can of course use them as a source of strange clicks and pops, but it's mainly used as a CV source at this moment. It works quite nice if you connect external clock to it right here, clock in. I usually use it with the clock out from ERICA SYNTHS drum sequencer, which I have right here. So I have all of the stuff synced in, all the quantizers and everything is nicely working together. Then you have those 3 knobs that I have told you about. These knobs determine sort of algorithm that will produce the sequences. You can think of the X and Y knobs as the controllers for the matrix. So we can picture that as a virtual matrix that consists of 16 per 16 cells. And you move around those cells with X and Y, and then you decide upon where the sequence starts with the S knob right here. But what is really cool, you can trigger that S manually right here, or you could trigger that with the S trick, which means if you have a really long sequence, you can just trigger it with a sequencer like I have it in here, in ERICA SYNTHS drum sequencer, let's say on the first step, and it will repeat every 16th steps. So you can have some randomness, but it will repeat. So it's a control randomness, which is very, very cool. Then you have below here, we have the 3 mode switch. You decide upon 3 flavors of noise right here. And there is a really nice table in the manual which explains how many stages or how the flavors work with each of the modes. Then we have CV inputs for each of the knobs. So we have rate CV, XCV, YCV, and SCV, and you get attenuators for the X, Y, and S. Then I have mentioned the clock in already. Then the S trig, I also have mentioned that. And then we have 2 outs right here, left and right. And that's it for the main panel. Here is the expander. We have the auto band, which is basically a modulation, an envelope which modulates the rate. With this knob you decide about how fast it goes, auto rate. And with this knob you decide whether it's rising or falling. Then we also have 3 modes here, but this works in conjunction with this. It's called alt mode and it works as a sub mode. So for instance, if I have this switch on high, then with this switch I change between sub modes of the first mode. So it's kind of like a finer control of the first mode. Then if we go to the middle mode, then again I'm controlling this middle mode, 3 sub modes. And then again same thing with the lowest mode. So together I have 9 modes. I can also trigger the envelope right here manually, and I can also trigger this envelope with a sequencer which I have presented to you at the beginning of this video. Then we also have a clock output which outputs the internal clock, and which is very nifty, we have the envelope output, so we can also use it somewhere else in our system. Now let's start with the patch that you have seen at the beginning of this video, but I want to go over it again so you can see exactly what it is and how I used it. I really love this as a percussion source. It's very punchy and crunchy, and it's digital at its best. So what I have here is a simple patch. I have the left output connected to my VCA. Then I have the VCA connected to my mixer, and it's controlled by mats, and the mats is fed with ERICA SYNTHS drum sequencer. Basically the drum sequencer is doing all my triggering duties, as it has 16 outputs and 12 accent outputs, so it's ridiculously powerful. So let's hear it in action. If I move to the upper register, as you can hear it, just with those knobs and different maybe modes right here, you can get some, you know, nice snares, hi-hats, some noises, as you can hear. So if you like those vintage computers sounds, yeah, that's what I'm talking about, then you will love this module. You can now trigger the auto band right here. See, with this, you decide which way it goes, and with this one, how fast or slow it goes. So it's rising or falling. You can also trigger this via sequencer if you trigger the AR trig right here. So it makes it even more interesting. So you can also connect some CVs in here to control the X and Y. I have some LFO and a sequence from Eloquencer into the Y. So it's even more interesting. And fun. The second thing that I like to use this for is as a source of a CV. So what I have here is I have a Rubicon connected to my VCA Then I have another sequence from drum sequencer going to meds and triggering the VCA. And then I have clock output from drum sequencer, again connected to clock in on black code source. And it's all synchronized by 1 clock. So then I'm outputting this output to my tip-top quantizer, and tip-top quantizer is quantizing my Rubicon. And this is how it sounds like. It goes through verb, reverb. So now when you change the X and Y, you change different sequences. And now you can hear the S knob actually, because you can't really hear it working in the audio range. You can hear it mainly in the ESCV, like now. It just changes the starting point of the sequence that you choose with this and this. Now, this is quite random, and let's say you would like to loop this sequence so it's random, but we can decide when it actually starts and loops. And for that very reason, I have track number 4 connected to asterisk right here. So now we can see that on the drum sequencer, I have only one step on the first step. So now you can hear that this loop is looping every 16 steps. So it's more predictable, and I can change the sequences and they will repeat whenever I want on the drum sequencer. So it could be 32 or 64 steps long, depending on how I set it up in the drum sequencer. And of course, you can still animate those just as I did before with another sequencer or LFOs or anything else that has a CV signal. So I can again randomize the X or Y and get some wild results.